I straightened my blazer, took a deep breath, and signed the final acquisition papers for my 5th childcare center. "Congratulations, Ms. Mitchell," the broker said, extending her hand. "Bright Start Learning Centers continues to impress." As I shook her hand, my mother's voice echoed in my head from 6 years ago. "You're just a nanny, Sarah, a glorified babysitter." That comment had cut deep at my birthday dinner when I was 26, but now at 32, those words fueled something different in me. My phone buzzed with a notification, another email from my mother asking about the receptionist position at our flagship location. The irony wasn't lost on me. The woman who had mocked my career choice was now seeking employment at my $2 million childcare empire. I thanked the broker and stepped out into the bright spring morning, remembering how my childhood bedroom had been plastered with pictures of teachers rather than movie stars. While other kids dreamed of being astronauts or doctors, I had always known I wanted to work with children, to shape young minds during their most formative years. My parents had other plans, of course. A surgeon father and lawyer mother didn't raise their daughter to just watch kids all day. But life has a way of coming full circle. Sometimes the passion others mock becomes your greatest strength, and the path they discourage leads to your most meaningful success. I never set out to prove my mother wrong or to build a business empire. I just followed my heart and refused to let anyone, even family, define my worth by their limited understanding of what I do. That's the thing about following your true calling. It may not impress everyone initially, but staying the course creates ripples that eventually can't be ignored, even by those who once sneered at your dreams. My earliest memories involve arranging my stuffed animals in neat rows, standing before them with a small chalkboard my grandmother Eleanor had gifted me for my 5th birthday. While other children played house, I played school, meticulously, planning lessons and reading stories to my plush audience. By age 12, I was the most sought-after babysitter in our affluent Boston neighborhood, parents calling weeks in advance to book my services. I had a natural way with children that even adults noticed. Everyone except my own parents. My mother, Caroline's law office, was decorated with her Harvard Law diploma and photos of her shaking hands with state senators and judges. My father, Thomas, performed complex surgical procedures, literally holding people's hearts in his hands daily. Success in the Mitchell household had a very specific definition: prestigious degrees, 6-figure salaries, and careers that impressed at cocktail parties. I still remember my 5th grade career day vividly. I had spent hours creating a colorful poster about becoming an early childhood educator, complete with cutout pictures from magazines showing teachers and children. When my turn came, I proudly explained my dream of opening a school someday. While other parents nodded encouragingly, I caught my mother's tight smile and the slight shake of her head. In the car afterward, she suggested I aim higher. "Teaching is respectable, Sarah, but with your intelligence, you could be a pediatrician instead, still working with children, but making a real difference." That was the first small wound. The implication that nurturing children's development wasn't a real difference. Throughout middle and high school, brochures for pre-med programs mysteriously appeared on my desk. My father casually mentioned family connections at top medical schools during dinner. My mother arranged casual coffees with her colleagues' daughters who were in law school. The message was clear. My passion was cute but not a serious career path. Only my grandmother Eleanor seemed to understand. During weekend visits to her cozy Cambridge apartment, she'd listen to my ideas about innovative teaching methods. "Not everyone is meant to follow conventional paths, Sarah," she'd say, her eyes crinkling behind tortoiseshell glasses. "Some people need to create new ones." When high school graduation approached and college decisions loomed, the tension escalated. Over a celebratory dinner at my father's favorite steakhouse, they asked about my final college decision. "Boston University," I announced. "I've accepted their scholarship for early childhood education." The silence that followed was deafening. My mother set down her wine glass too hard, splashing Cabernet onto the white tablecloth. "We assumed you'd choose Northwestern's pre-law program," she said, her voice tight. "Or at least their business school." My father's disappointment was quieter, but equally palpable. "We'll support whatever you choose," he said finally, though his tone conveyed the opposite. They would pay for my education, but their approval, the thing I craved most, remained firmly withheld. Boston University's early childhood education program felt like coming home. For the first time, I was surrounded by people who didn't question my passion or suggest better alternatives. I thrived in classes about developmental psychology, curriculum design, and educational theory. My professors praised my innovative project proposals and insightful discussion contributions. During sophomore year, I formed a tight friendship with Jessica Kim, whose Korean immigrant parents had similar expectations about respectable careers, and Marcus Reed, a former finance major who switched to education after volunteering at an after-school program. We spent countless nights in the campus coffee shop, passionately discussing how we would revolutionize childcare and early education if given the chance. When the education department held its annual honors reception, during junior year, I called my parents 3 weeks in advance. "I'm receiving the department's Innovative Curriculum Design Award," I explained, trying to contain my excitement. "The ceremony is on the 15th at 7. I'd love for you to come." My mother's sigh traveled clearly through the phone. "That's the night of your father's hospital fundraiser. You know we can't miss that." I swallowed my disappointment. "Could you come for just part of it? My presentation is at 8. "Sarah, be reasonable. This is an important event for your father's career." That night, I accepted my award to enthusiastic applause from professors and peers, while the chairs I'd reserved in the front row remained conspicuously empty. Jessica's parents beamed proudly from the audience, even though they had driven 3 hours to attend. Their presence highlighted my parents' absence more sharply. The summer before senior year, I secured an internship at Glenwood Academy, one of Boston's most prestigious preschools. The director, Mrs. Bennett, took a special interest in my work. "You have an instinctive understanding of what children need," she observed, as I diffused a potential meltdown by creating an impromptu sharing system for a coveted toy. "That can't be taught." During that internship, Professor Diana Williams became my mentor and champion. A pioneering researcher in early childhood development, she recognized something in my approach. "You're combining educational rigor with emotional intelligence training in a way I find fascinating," she told me during our weekly coffee meetings. "Your methods deserve broader application." Under her guidance, I began developing what would later become my signature childcare philosophy, the whole child, whole future approach that would eventually distinguish my learning centers from conventional daycares and preschools. By graduation, I had refined my vision, created sample curricula, and built a portfolio demonstrating my approach. My parents attended the ceremony, of course. What would people think if they didn't? My mother hugged me stiffly. "Congratulations. I suppose you can always get an MBA later when you realize the limitations of this field." My father nodded in agreement. "The business world would still welcome someone with your abilities." I smiled through gritted teeth, the diploma in my hand suddenly feeling heavier. That night, alone in my apartment, I questioned my choices for the first time. Was I being stubborn? Was I seeing potential in a field that truly had the limitations my parents described? But when I reviewed the portfolio I'd created, seeing the intentionality behind every activity, the developmental milestones addressed, the emotional growth opportunities embedded within seemingly simple play, I recommitted to my path. My vision wasn't just valid, it was vital. Children deserved more than warehousing or rote academic drilling. They deserved environments that nurtured their complete development. And I was determined to create those environments, with or without my family's blessing. Glenwood Academy offered me a lead teacher position immediately after graduation, a rare opportunity that validated my choice, Despite my family's continued skepticism, I poured myself into creating a classroom environment that embodied my educational philosophy. My room became known for its innovative learning stations, calm atmosphere, and the remarkable progress my 3-year-olds made in both academic readiness and emotional regulation. Parents requested my class specifically, and the waiting list grew. The director began bringing visitors to observe my teaching methods. 6 months into my position, I was invited to monthly curriculum development meetings, usually reserved for senior staff. I was building a professional reputation that made me proud, even as my personal life remained strained by family tension. The contrast became painfully clear during a family dinner celebrating my father's hospital department chairmanship. Relatives crowded around our dining table, congratulating him on his achievement. When conversation eventually turned to me, my Aunt Patricia asked politely about my work. Before I could answer, my mother interjected, "Sarah's still at that preschool, playing with finger paints and handling tantrums." She laughed lightly, as though sharing an endearing joke. $22 an hour for a college graduate, but she insists it's her calling. The table grew uncomfortable as I struggled to maintain my composure. "Actually," I said evenly, "I've been asked to help redesign the curriculum for all 6 classrooms based on my results this year." My mother took a sip of wine. "Imagine redesigning hospital protocols after 6 months as a nurse. Some fields require actual expertise, dear." I excused myself shortly after, locking myself in my childhood bathroom while tears threatened. These interactions repeated through holidays and family gatherings. My cousin's law school acceptances and medical residencies were celebrated with champagne toasts, while my promotion to lead curriculum coordinator was acknowledged with polite nods and quick subject changes. The only bright spot in this period was my work with Jake, a 4-year-old who had been dismissed from 2 previous preschools for behavioral issues. His parents, both accomplished scientists, were desperate when they enrolled him at Glenwood as a last resort. Jake's first weeks in my classroom were challenging. He struggled with transitions, had frequent emotional outbursts, and had difficulty connecting with peers. Rather than seeing a problem child, I recognized a highly intelligent boy whose sensory processing differences weren't being accommodated. I redesigned my classroom schedule to give Jake advance notice of transitions, created a quiet corner where he could self-regulate when overwhelmed, and developed social scripts that helped him navigate peer interactions. Within 2 months, Jake was thriving. His parents' gratitude was overwhelming. "You've changed our entire family dynamic," his mother told me, tears in her eyes. For the first time, someone saw our son instead of just his behaviors. Jake's father, a renowned physicist, spoke to the school board about my work. This external validation sustained me when family approval remained elusive. Though I maintained regular contact with my parents, I began emotionally distancing myself for self-preservation. Our conversations became increasingly superficial. I shared fewer details about my professional life, tired of having my achievements minimized. Yet some part of me still yearned for their approval, the child inside who had once proudly shown off her teacher posters, hoping for encouragement. My 26th birthday marked a turning point I never anticipated. My mother insisted on hosting dinner at Calavri's, an upscale Italian restaurant where she often entertained clients. "Nonsense," she'd said when I suggested somewhere more casual. 26 is significant. We should celebrate properly." Dressed in a new navy blue dress I'd splurged on, I arrived feeling cautiously optimistic. Perhaps this dinner represented a new chapter in our relationship, one where my parents might finally see me as an adult whose choices deserved respect. The warm ambiance, flowing wine, and pleasant conversation through appetizers bolstered my hope. When my father asked about work, I seized the opportunity. "Actually, I have exciting news," I said, unable to contain my smile. "Mrs. Bennett is retiring next year, and the board has asked me to consider stepping into the director position. I'd be the youngest director in Glenwood's 40-year history." I expected congratulations, perhaps even a glimmer of pride. Instead, My mother set down her fork and looked at me with something between pity and exasperation. "Oh, Sarah, is that really what you want? You're just a nanny, a glorified babysitter. When are you going to use your potential for something meaningful?" The restaurant noise faded to a dull roar as blood rushed to my face. My father studied his wine glass, saying nothing, his silence as damning as my mother's words. "You don't understand what I do," I managed, my voice barely steady. "I'm shaping developing minds during their most formative years. The work is intellectually demanding and emotionally complex." My mother reached across the table to pat my hand condescendingly. "Of course it seems that way to you, dear. But from the outside, it's playing with blocks and wiping noses. Your father and I just want more for you than that." Something inside me shattered. Years of seeking approval, of explaining my passion, of hoping they would eventually understand. All of it collapsed under the weight of those dismissive words. I stood abruptly, nearly knocking over my water glass. "Thank you for dinner," I said, barely recognizing my own voice. "I need to go." I ignored their protests, brushed past the concerned waiter, and walked straight out into the rain without waiting for the valet to retrieve my car. I walked 6 blocks in heels and pouring rain before I could breathe normally again. Soaked and shivering, I finally called an Uber. That night, I called the one person who had always seen my value. "Grandma, did I make a mistake?" I asked as soon as Eleanor answered. "Should I have become a doctor or lawyer like they wanted?" Her response was immediate and firm. "Sarah Elizabeth Mitchell, you listen to me. Not everyone is meant to perform surgery or argue court cases. Some people are called to nurture the next generation. What could possibly be more important than that?" We talked for hours. About family expectations, about societal undervaluation, of caring professions, about finding the courage to create your own path. "Your parents built conventional success," she said wisely. "Perhaps you're meant to redefine what success looks like." After our conversation, I couldn't sleep. I sat at my small kitchen table until dawn, researching childcare industry statistics, market trends, and business models. What I found galvanized me. A massive need for quality childcare, parents desperate for programs that offered more than basic supervision, and a field ripe for innovation. Working within existing schools, I would always be limited by established parameters, but creating something new that offered boundless possibilities. As the sun rose over Boston, I made 2 decisions. I would stop seeking my parents' approval for my life choices, and I would build something so meaningful that its value would be undeniable, even to them. That morning, I opened a fresh document on my laptop and typed, "Bright Start Learning Center's Business Plan Draft." My hands shook slightly, but my vision had never been clearer. While maintaining my position at Glenwood, I enrolled in evening business classes at Boston University's Extension program. I knew my education philosophy was sound. Now I needed to understand how to build a sustainable business around it. Financial, management, marketing, legal considerations for small businesses. I absorbed it all with the same fervor I'd once applied to learning developmental psychology. My small apartment became command central for my dream. Vision boards covered the walls, business books towered on my coffee table, and spreadsheets tracking potential costs and revenue projections filled my computer. I refined my whole child, whole future approach into a marketable framework that would distinguish Bright Start from conventional childcare centers. Where most daycares focused primarily on safety and basic play, and preschools increasingly pushed academic readiness at the expense of social-emotional development, my model would intentionally integrate both. Every activity, from morning circle time to outdoor play, would be designed to simultaneously advance multiple developmental domains. To make this vision reality, I needed capital, much more than I could save from my teacher's salary. I lived frugally moving to a smaller apartment in a less desirable neighborhood, and taking on weekend consultation work with families struggling with behavioral issues. I opened a separate savings account labeled Bright Start Seed Fund and watched it grow painfully slowly. After accumulating $20,000, enough for perhaps 2 months' rent and basic supplies, I approached banks for small business loans. The rejections came swiftly. "Your concept is interesting," one loan officer told me, "but childcare is high risk with slim margins. Without significant collateral or proven business experience, we can't take the chance." 6 banks, similar responses. With traditional funding avenues exhausted and my savings insufficient, I made the difficult decision to approach my parents. I prepared meticulously, creating a professional presentation outlining market research, financial projections, and my educational methodology. I practiced my pitch relentlessly, anticipating every possible objection. On a Sunday afternoon in Sneered, their tastefully decorated living room, I delivered what I believed was a compelling business proposal. I wasn't asking for charity. I was offering an investment opportunity in a business addressing a genuine market need. My father listened, silently, arms crossed. When I finished, my mother laughed. Actually laughed. "Sarah, this is fantasy. You've never run so much as a lemonade stand, and now you want to launch a business? The failure rate for new businesses is astronomical, especially for someone with no experience." My father finally spoke. "If you're serious about business, get an MBA first. Work in an established company. Learn how the real world operates before sinking money you don't have into a risky venture. The childcare industry generates $54 billion annually in this country," I countered, citing my research. "Working parents are desperate for quality care with an educational foundation." My mother's dismissal was swift and cutting. "You'll fail, like all your other childish dreams. And then you'll come asking us to bail you out. The answer is no." I gathered my presentation materials with shaking hands, fighting back tears until I was safely in my car. For 3 days, I seriously considered abandoning my plan. Was I being naive? Was this another situation where they saw reality more clearly than I did? The turning point came unexpectedly during my monthly mentoring session with Professor Williams. Noticing my unusual quietness, she gently probed until I confessed my struggling business launch and my parents' devastating reaction. Instead of sympathetic platitudes, her eyes lit up. "Sarah, I've been waiting for someone to revolutionize childcare delivery. Your approach is exactly what's needed." She paused, considering something. "Have you met Abigail Henderson? She's a former student of mine who made a fortune in tech and now focuses on educational investments. She might be interested in what you're building." 2 weeks later, I sat across from Mrs. Henderson in her minimalist office overlooking Boston Harbor. A formidable woman in her 60s with silver hair and piercing blue eyes, she asked pointed questions about my methodology, financial projections, and scaling strategy. I answered with hard data and passionate conviction. 3 hours later, she made an offer, $200,000 in exchange for 25% equity, with performance benchmarks that could reduce her stake over time. The terms were challenging but fair, and most importantly, they gave me the chance to prove my concept. "I'm not investing in childcare," she told me as we shook hands. "I'm investing in you and your vision for transforming how we nurture young minds." As I signed the funding agreement the following week, I realized I'd crossed an invisible threshold. No longer was I Sarah the teacher seeking approval. I had become Sarah the founder, creating something entirely new. The foundation was laid, now I needed to build. Finding the right location for the first Bright Start Learning Center consumed my evenings and weekends for nearly 2 months. Commercial real estate agents showed me sterile office spaces in strip malls, basement rooms with inadequate natural light, and overpriced storefronts. None matched the environment I envisioned, a place that felt both homey and stimulating, with indoor-outdoor flow and flexible learning spaces. Just as frustration threatened to overwhelm me, I discovered a for sale sign in front of a Victorian house on a tree-lined street in Cambridge. The 3-story structure had previously housed a small law firm that had relocated downtown. With its generous windows, large fenced yard, and separate rooms that could be transformed into age-appropriate learning areas, it was perfect, except for the zoning restrictions and price tag well beyond my budget. Undeterred, I researched zoning variances, prepared a community impact statement demonstrating how quality childcare would benefit the neighborhood, and attended multiple hearings to address concerns about traffic and noise. After 6 exhausting weeks navigating bureaucracy, I secured the necessary approvals. Negotiations with the seller resulted in a lease-to-own arrangement that Mrs. Henderson helped structure to protect my fledgling business. With location secured, I turned to hiring. Jessica, my college friend, immediately signed on as curriculum coordinator. Finding qualified teachers who shared my educational philosophy proved more challenging. Traditional early childhood educators were accustomed to either play-based or academic approaches, not my integrated model. After dozens of interviews, I assembled a small team willing to embrace my vision and undergo specialized training. Renovations quickly became my nightmare. The charming Victorian required significant modifications to meet childcare licensing requirements: additional bathrooms, safety features, accessibility ramps, enhanced fire protection. Costs spiraled beyond projections, consuming funds allocated for marketing and curriculum materials. Working with contractors revealed my inexperience. I failed to anticipate delays, miscommunications, and hidden expenses. 2 weeks before our scheduled opening, the fire marshal identified additional required modifications. Mrs. Henderson reluctantly provided additional funding, but her concerned emails suggested her patience was wearing thin. Opening day arrived, with only 6 children enrolled, a fraction of our 20-child capacity. The warm September morning found me standing nervously at the door, greeting families with professional smiles that masked my terror. Would parents entrust their precious children to this new, unproven center? Would my educational approach translate from theory to practical implementation? Traditional childcare providers in the area had begun a whisper campaign questioning our methods. Too experimental, they said. Not enough focus on academics, others claimed, while some suggested we were too structured for proper play-based learning. That first month, I worked 16-hour days, handling everything from administrative paperwork to classroom teaching to bathroom cleaning when our part-time custodian quit unexpectedly. I developed migraines from stress and lost 12 pounds I couldn't afford to lose from my already slim frame. Then came the email from my mother, arriving exactly 30 days after our opening. "I drove by your school yesterday and noticed the empty parking lot," she wrote. "When the inevitable failure comes, don't be too proud to ask for help with your resume. Law firms always need paralegals, and it's at least adjacent to education." I printed that email and pinned it to my office bulletin board, not as motivation, but as a reminder of the mindset I refuse to adopt regardless of challenges. That night, alone in the center after everyone had gone, I sat on the rainbow rug in our preschool room and cried for the first time since launching Bright Start. Had I overestimated the need? Misjudged my abilities? Created something no one actually wanted? As I contemplated the very real possibility of failure, a construction paper artwork caught my eye. A painting by 4-year-old Oliver, our most challenging student. Diagnosed with sensory processing issues, Oliver had initially struggled in our environment. The painting showed a recognizable house, our center, with a smiling stick figure labeled Ms. Sarah, surrounded by smaller figures. His mother had tearfully explained that this was the first time Oliver had drawn himself with other children, rather than alone. "He feels he belongs here," she'd said. "You've created something special." That simple painting renewed my resolve. Even if we help just these 6 children, Even if we never reached full enrollment, the work mattered. The next morning, I created new marketing materials emphasizing our specialized approach for children with diverse learning needs. I contacted developmental pediatricians and family therapists, offering tours and explaining our methodology. Gradually, word spread among parents of children who hadn't thrived in traditional settings. By the end of our third month, enrollment had doubled. By month 6, we had a small waiting list. Our reputation grew through the most powerful marketing. Of all, parents telling other parents about the differences they observed in their children's development, confidence, and joy in learning. The first anniversary of Bright Start Learning Center arrived with a celebratory atmosphere I could hardly have imagined during those early struggling months. Our Cambridge location now operated at full capacity with 24 children and a waiting list stretching 6 months. More significantly, our educational approach had proven itself through measurable outcomes and parent testimonials. Children previously labeled difficult in other settings thrived in our environment. Academically focused families marveled at their children's emotional intelligence growth, while parents previously concerned only with social development noticed impressive cognitive gains. The Boston Herald ran a feature article titled "Rethinking Childcare. Cambridge Center blends academic and emotional learning," including interviews with satisfied parents and education experts. The publicity brought a flood of enrollment inquiries and, importantly, attention from potential investors. I had used the first year to meticulously document our methodology, creating a proprietary curriculum that systematized the whole child, whole future approach. Every activity, transition, and environmental element was intentionally designed and its impact tracked. This documentation proved crucial when Mrs. Henderson introduced me to additional investors interested in funding. Expansion. "You've proven the concept works," she told me. "Now show them how it scales." An unexpected opportunity arose when a struggling traditional daycare in Brookline approached me about acquisition. The owner was retiring with no succession plan, and parents had expressed interest in our model. The location was ideal, an affluent area with young professional families willing to pay premium rates for quality care. With additional investment secured, I purchased the facility, closed it for a month for renovation and staff training, and reopened as Bright Start's second location. The expansion necessitated organizational growth. I could no longer personally oversee every aspect of operations while developing the business. After careful consideration, I hired Marcus, my other close friend from college, as operations director. With his business minor and shared philosophical commitment, he became my essential partner in growth. His systems thinking complemented my educational focus, creating a more robust organization. Parents became our most effective advocates. A mother who was a TED Talk organizer invited me to give a regional presentation on the integration of cognitive and emotional development in early childhood. The video received over 70,000 views online, bringing national attention to our approach. The Regional Early Childhood Association recognized Bright Start with their annual Innovation in Childcare Award, legitimizing our model within the professional community. As the business stabilized, I fulfilled a personal promise. With the first significant profits, I purchased a small but comfortable condo for my grandmother Eleanor, who had believed in me when no one else did. "I always knew you would create something meaningful," she said, tears in her eyes as I handed her the keys. "Your grandfather would have been so proud." Within 18 months of opening our second location, we expanded to a third in Newton, following the same model of renovation, staff training, and community integration. The Bright Start name became synonymous with quality care and innovative education throughout Greater Boston. Industry publications featured our teacher training program and curriculum. Other childcare centers began attempting to imitate aspects of our approach, though few understood the intentional integration that made it effective. By the 3-year mark of our original location, Bright Start had grown to $1 million business with 3 thriving centers, 42 employees, and over 100 children enrolled. The milestone received coverage in Boston Business Journal, highlighting the growth potential in quality-focused childcare. That article apparently caught my mother's attention. After years of minimal contact maintained mostly through holiday cards and brief strained phone calls on birthdays, she called one evening as I was leaving the office. "Sarah," she said, her voice uncharacteristically warm. "I saw the write-up in the Business Journal. It seems you're doing quite well for yourself." The conversation that followed was surreal. My mother asking detailed questions about business growth, revenue models, and expansion plans. Not once did she mention children, education philosophy, or the actual work we did. Her interest centered entirely on the financial success, as though the business could have been selling widgets rather than nurturing young lives. "We should have lunch soon," she suggested before ending the call. "I'd love to hear more about your company." The emphasis on company rather than school or centers spoke volumes. I agreed politely while maintaining emotional distance, recognizing that her sudden interest stemmed from financial metrics rather than genuine understanding of my vision. As Bright Start continued growing, I remained focused on our mission rather than validation from those who had dismissed it. Yet I couldn't deny a certain satisfaction in knowing that success in their terms, profit, recognition, influence, had finally made them take notice, even if they still missed the deeper purpose driving it all. By our 5th year, Bright Start Learning Centers had become a recognized name in childcare innovation beyond Boston. Our 4th and 5th locations opened in Somerville and Wellesley, each reaching capacity enrollment within months, rather than the year I'd initially projected. National education publications featured our methodology in articles about the future of early childhood education. I received speaking invitations from universities and education conferences across the country. The culmination of this recognition came with an invitation to deliver a keynote address at the National Early Childhood Education Conference in Chicago, a platform typically reserved for researchers and academics with decades in the field. The Associated Profile in Education Innovator magazine described Bright Start as revolutionizing childcare by bridging the false dichotomy between academic preparation and social-emotional development. With 5 thriving centers, over 70 employees, and a valuation approaching $2 million, Bright Start had exceeded even my ambitious projections. While professional success flourished, my relationship with my parents remained distant but cordial. We exchanged occasional texts and met for obligatory holiday dinners where conversation remained superficial. They never visited my centers or expressed interest in the actual work happening inside them. Their acknowledgement of my success came in the form of mentioning it to their friends. "Sarah has quite a successful business now," reducing years of passionate work to a simple status marker. The fragile détente shattered unexpectedly on a Tuesday afternoon when my assistant buzzed my office. "Your mother is here to see you. She doesn't have an appointment." Confused and instantly tense, I straightened my desk and prepared myself, mentally. Caroline Mitchell walked into my office with the confident bearing of someone entering a familiar space rather than a first-time visitor. She surveyed the room, the awards on the wall, the children's artwork I displayed alongside, professional certificates, the strategic plan visible on my whiteboard. "Nice office," she said finally. "Very colorful." I remained behind my desk. "This is a surprise. Is everything okay with Dad?" "Your father is fine. I'm here about a professional matter." She sat uninvited in the chair opposite my desk. "I've been following your company's growth. Very impressive for someone with no business background." The backhanded compliment was familiar territory. "Thank you. Did you need something specific? I have a staff meeting in 20 minutes. She smoothed her already impeccable blazer. "I'm making a career change. The partnership at Wilkins & Reed has become untenable. I've been exploring new opportunities." Cold understanding dawned as she continued. Your company could use someone with my legal expertise as you expand. Executive level, of course. Perhaps chief operations officer or general counsel. The childcare industry is heavily regulated, and my background would be invaluable. The audacity stunned me momentarily. This woman who had dismissed my career as glorified babysitting now wanted an executive position in the company I'd built despite her discouragement. Before I could respond, she continued, "I've always supported your work with children, Sarah. I simply wanted you to dream bigger, and look, you have. You've built a business, just as I always knew you could." The revisionist history ignited something inside me. Always supported? You mocked this career path at every opportunity. You called me a glorified babysitter. You refused to help when I came to you with a business plan. Her expression hardened. That's a rather dramatic interpretation of constructive guidance. Families have disagreements. What matters is that I'm here now, offering my expertise when you need it most for expansion. What makes you think I need your expertise? My voice remained measured despite my racing heart. I have a legal team. I have an operations director. What I don't have is an opening for someone who clearly doesn't understand or value our core mission. Her facade cracked slightly. I was let go, Sarah, after 23 years. Budget cuts and restructuring, they called it. For a moment, I felt a flicker of empathy, quickly extinguished by her next words. I thought family would step up. I've told several colleagues I'd be joining your executive team. It would be embarrassing to walk that back now. When I didn't immediately respond, her tactics shifted. The press might find it interesting that the founder of this progressive childcare empire comes from significant privilege, private schools, family connections, financial safety nets. How does that align with your public image of the self-made entrepreneur championing educational access? The implied threat hung between us. Are you threatening to undermine my business if I don't hire you? I asked incredulously. I'm suggesting that family supports family, especially when reputations are at stake. Mine and yours. After she left, the panic attack hit with unexpected force. Sitting on my office floor, struggling to breathe, I battled concurrent waves of fury, guilt, and fear. Would she actually try to damage Bright Start's reputation? Did I owe her a position because she was family? Was I being needlessly vindictive by refusing? The questions tormented me through a sleepless night and into my weekly therapy session the following day. Dr. Levin listened carefully to the entire situation before offering her perspective. Sarah, you've described a pattern of emotional manipulation throughout your relationship with your mother. This situation follows the same pattern, just with higher stakes because you now have something she wants. Her words illuminated the dynamic with startling clarity. Throughout my life, my mother had defined my worth by her standards, dismissed my choices when they didn't align with her vision, and now sought to capitalize on my success while simultaneously threatening it. Most revealing was my instinctive guilt, the programmed response to prioritize her needs above my own, even when doing so would compromise everything I'd built. Your mother doesn't want to contribute to your vision, Dr. Levin continued. She wants to extract value from it while minimizing the philosophy that created it. That's not collaboration. It's appropriation. That afternoon, alone in my office, I experienced a profound realization. I had built something so valuable that even my mother, who had dismissed it for years, now wanted to be part of it. Her attempt to claim space in my company actually validated its worth in the most ironic way possible. More importantly, I recognized that maintaining Bright Start's integrity required me to protect it from anyone whose values didn't align with our mission, even family. I had spent years seeking my mother's approval of my choices. Now, ironically, she was seeking my approval of hers. The power dynamic had shifted completely, though she hadn't fully registered the change. For the first time, I saw clearly that I controlled this situation, not through manipulation or retaliation, but through the legitimate authority I'd earned by creating something of genuine value. After careful consideration, I arranged to meet my mother at our flagship Cambridge Center on a Saturday when no children were present. Rather than connecting at my corporate office, I wanted her to genuinely see what I had built, not just the business metrics but the learning environments that embodied our philosophy. I arrived early, walking through the light-filled classrooms, touching the carefully selected materials that sparked imagination and development. This was the physical manifestation of my vision, the vision she had dismissed for so many years. When she arrived, precisely on time in a formal business suit inappropriate for a childcare setting, I greeted her professionally. "I thought you should see what we actually do before we discuss any potential role for you here." Her tight smile suggested she viewed this as a procedural hurdle rather than a meaningful introduction. I began the tour, explaining the intentional design elements of each space, how the reading nook's curved architecture created both intimacy and visibility, how the art area's setup fostered both independent creativity and collaborative projects, how even the placement of windows maximized natural light patterns throughout the day. I showed her our documentation systems tracking individual children's development across multiple domains, the curriculum frameworks that integrated cognitive and emotional learning, the parent communication tools that extended our approach into home environments. Gradually, her dismissive expression shifted to something resembling curiosity, though she maintained professional distance. In our science exploration area, I finally addressed the situation directly. "Mom, I know you're in a difficult position professionally. I understand feeling lost when an identity you've built is suddenly taken away. But I need to be clear about something." I met her eyes steadily. "Your words at my 26th birthday? Calling me just a nanny, a glorified babysitter. They hurt deeply. Not just because they came from my mother, but because they fundamentally misunderstood the importance and complexity of what I do." She began to protest, but I continued. "I've built Bright Start on a foundation of respect. Respect for children's complete developmental needs, respect for teachers as skilled professionals, respect for parents as partners. I cannot bring someone into our organization, especially at a leadership level, who doesn't genuinely share those values, regardless of their technical qualifications or family connection." Her face flushed. "So you're refusing to help me, after all we did for you?" "I'm not refusing to help," I clarified. "I'm refusing to place you in an executive position for which you're philosophically misaligned. But I am offering you something else." I handed her a formal job description. "We have an opening for a front desk receptionist at our Wellesley location. It would give you the opportunity to learn our organization from the ground up, to understand what we actually do before assuming any leadership role." The shock on her face would have been comical in another context. "A receptionist? I'm an attorney with 25 years of experience." "You're an attorney with no experience in childcare, early education, or our specific methodology," I countered gently. "Everyone who advances to leadership here understands our work at the most fundamental level. Even I work directly with children before taking on administrative roles." For several moments, she seemed ready to storm out. Then something shifted in her expression. A recognition, perhaps, that her usual tactics wouldn't work. "You're serious about this?" "Completely. It's not punishment, Mom. It's the same standard I apply to everyone." After further discussion, where I remained calmly immovable, she reluctantly agreed to interview for the receptionist position, making clear her expectation of rapid advancement. 3 weeks later, my mother began working at our Wellesley location, answering phones, greeting families, and handling basic administrative tasks. The adjustment was difficult for her. The status shift, the different interaction style required with parents and children, the realization that childcare operations involved complexities she'd never considered. Yet something unexpected happened. In the months that followed, working daily in an environment designed around respect for children's development, she began to witness the intentionality behind our approach. She observed teachers skillfully guiding emotional regulation during conflicts over toys. She saw curriculum coordinators designing activities that simultaneously developed fine motor skills, scientific thinking, and collaborative abilities. She experienced parents' gratitude when their children made developmental breakthroughs. Gradually, her perspective shifted. 6 months into her role, during a staff appreciation event, she approached me somewhat awkwardly. "I didn't understand before," she admitted, her voice uncharacteristically humble. "What you built, it's not just watching children. It's a sophisticated educational model." The acknowledgement, so long withheld, felt surreal. "Thank you for seeing that," I replied simply. Over the following year, as Bright Start expanded to our 7th and 8th locations and our valuation exceeded $2 million, my mother advanced to an administrative coordinator position, having earned it through demonstrated commitment, rather than demanded it through familial obligation. The National Childcare Association recognized our model with their Innovation Award, bringing further validation to our approach. With secure financial footing, I established the Bright Start Foundation, providing scholarships for childcare workers seeking advanced education, breaking down the economic barriers that prevented many passionate educators from entering or remaining in the field. My relationship with my mother transformed gradually into something I never expected, a measured respect, if not the unconditional support I had once craved. During a rare dinner together, just the two of us, she finally offered the apology I had stopped expecting. "I was wrong about your work," she said, studying her wine glass. "I equated salary with value and prestige with importance. I didn't understand that what you do shapes the future in ways my legal career never could." The acknowledgement brought unexpected tears to my eyes. "Thank you for saying that." As I approach my 33rd birthday, with plans for nationwide expansion through a carefully designed franchise model, I often reflect on the journey from dismissed nanny to industry innovator. The path wasn't what I'd initially imagined. It proved simultaneously more difficult and more rewarding than I could have anticipated. When I visit our centers now, watching children engage in purposeful play that builds both their minds and hearts, I feel profound gratitude for having trusted my own vision despite discouragement. Sometimes the passion others mock becomes your greatest strength. Sometimes the path they discourage leads to your most meaningful success. And sometimes, the people who initially fail to see your value eventually come to understand it, though not before you've learned to validate yourself without their approval. If you're facing someone who diminishes your dreams or dismisses your passion, remember that their limited perspective doesn't define your potential. The work that calls to your heart may be exactly what the world needs, even if others can't. Yet see its value. Have you ever had someone dismiss your passion only to later witness its success? Or found yourself building something meaningful despite discouragement? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this journey resonated with you, please consider subscribing for more stories about finding strength in unexpected places. Thank you for listening. And remember, the things others mock might just become your greatest achievements. Wishing you courage on your own path to creating something meaningful, whatever form that takes.